No, finally got my. So I got this fedora last year as a Christmas gift from Antonio's mom, but there was no feather with it, and I finally ordered the feathers. I have like 20 feathers now, but now I need more fedoras to match a lot of those feathers. But this
You
is
know what that means then?
one of the few.
You need more fedoras.
Yep.
You look like a DJ, dude.
See, we'll adjust this a little bit. How about now?
You look like a DJ. Just
Awesome.
you barely move the hat back.
Awesome. What it be, what it do?
This is Chrissy Poo and your boy Tristan a Blue.
Well, I already said my name, and then you said my name.
No, you said Chrissy Poo.
Oh, I said Tristy Poo.
Gross. Well,
Welcome back to episode 15 of the Thick and Thin podcast.
bitch.
We're going to talk about something that a lot of you are afraid of, and that's commitment.
Fuck. I'm not.
You know, I admire that about you, because after everything that happened last year, you have every reason to, but look at you.
You're gonna hold this for the rest of my life, aren't you?
No, just until you find someone new.
So you're gonna hold this for the rest of my life, aren't you?
Oh, man. So, yeah, we're talking about commitment.
Well, what about commitment?
Well, commitment comes in many forms. Behind what you do every day, behind your relationships, all that stuff. What's your definition of commitment?
Don't fuck up. That's honestly what I think of all the time. I think of commitment. Don't fuck up.
I think commitment to me is you're set out to do something or build something or build that relationship with somebody and don't look back.
The way I'm also seeing commitment is, relationship building. We forget I'm not in a relationship. So it's about like what I do on my day-to-day basis, which is dieting. And that's why I say don't fuck up.
Well, there you go.
But I don't think commitment's that hard, though.
I think people have a hard time with it for various reasons, but I think if you're in the right mental space and see commitment for what it is and see some of the benefits that it can give you, then yeah, I'm with you. I don't think commitment's really that hard once you learn how to do it.
Especially in relationships. I think for me, I feel like if I'm committed, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm good because I'm already going to be good.
Yeah.
Because let's say it ends bad.
Mm-hmm.
At least I know that I was still committed in the relationship.
That's true.
And that's something you can't take away from me.
That is true. Stuck it out to the end. Or whether if it's like a goal that you set, like a fitness goal, and maybe you didn't get quite to where you wanted to go, but if you committed to it every day, you can at least say that you know.
That's actually low key harder than a relationship.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure. I mean, I think you could probably speak on that from like. I think a lot of people have a hard time with commitment in various areas, but one of the ones that I find a lot is, good physical lifestyle.
Yeah.
And fitness and what have you. You're somebody who's a competitive power lifter, so you have to commit to things all the time. So, for example, you have to commit to certain things to get to certain weights for competitions. You have to commit yourself to very regimented nutrition plans, probably at certain points. What would you say is the biggest key for people? Say if you're because you've known how to lose weight, you know how to put on weight. When it comes to people with weight loss, for example, who want to lose weight but haven't found that commitment yet to do so, what do you think is A, the reason why, and B, what people need to do to get into that mindset, for example?
I think the reason why is because they are living a day to day. So, they'll think about like they don't think about the end goal. Oh, they think about the end goal, but they don't they don't see it as like it's an everyday thing.
Right.
Rather they can just be like, "Oh, I can just drop that weight by this amount of time. I'll be good if I just eat off really bad at this day." And everybody knows that one day leads to another, and that leads to another, and that leads to another. And then your goal starts seeming a lot further than what it actually is. And then you stop seeing the end goal and just start seeing what you have in front of you now. And I think for, funny enough, and I think for people that want to stay motivated to be in that is, again, you have to see the end goal. For me, uh, during competition or getting ready for competition, I set a goal that I have to be at this weight at this time. What do I need to do on my day to day basis to get there? While still keeping my sanity.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just having that deadline for me is what really gets me going. Because again, sometimes I don't drop that weight close to the competition, and I will suffer those 3-4 days to make that weight.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, that's what I do, and it's been working. But you also compete. You do bowling.
Yeah. I'd say my commitment level with that comes a lot from it, as far as actually bowling, like compared to people that do it professionally. Some of those people will bowl hours and hours and hours on end, multiple days a week, like 5, 6 days a week, logging in like, you know, probably at least like 20, 30 games worth of throwing per day. I'm not committed on that level. Because I decided to commit to my career more because I thought that there was more money in it for me, which I think is probably likely correct. But, um, a lot of it is committing, especially within the last few months, training, practicing, competing on tough conditions,
Mm-hmm.
and committing to learn from those things. I think a lot of times, a lot of people stop committing when they face adversity, face failure, and all that stuff. When in reality, if you're leaning into learning from those things, I think in probably the vast majority of cases, that kind of thing pays off in the long term. And, I think for the big thing when it comes to commitment is you have to know why you're committing to something. You
Yeah.
really, that is like an absolute must. And that why has to be important enough to you. Kind of goes back to an episode where I had Craig on, where we were talking about passion versus conviction.
Mm-hmm.
I think you need a certain level of conviction to commit.
Okay. Yeah.
Like you have that why it has to be something that you want and need badly enough. So that way when you're in those days where all you see is how far you have to go, you have something there telling you like you have no choice.
Yeah.
There is no option to quit on this. Like it's either you have this thing that is so important to you that it's almost like breathing air in a way, like almost as important to you as that, or uh, you know, you don't get it, and you got to think about where you're gonna be with yourself
Okay. So let's say taking that,
in that sense.
shifting, let's shift it a little bit. But now let's take away that commitment to yourself and put it to a person.
Right.
What do you think makes it hard to commit to another person?
My answer to that is for the listeners, tune into the last episode. Um, a lot of people get done wrong, get heartbroken. I know a fair amount of people that won't put themselves back out there to label themselves seriously in a relationship because they've been hurt before.
Okay.
Um, it's the fear of failure. I think fear of failure is a very real thing. This was something you and I were taught at ad nauseum at
Well,
one
let's
point.
say you're in that relationship.
Mm-hmm.
That fear of failure is kind of already gone.
Right.
What do you think makes it hard for someone to still be committed after they're already in it?
Well, unfortunately, I think people have the grass is greener on the other side syndrome, shiny thing syndrome,
Squirrel.
squirrel. Yeah, they don't keep their eyes on the long-term
Mm-hmm.
goals of what you want to build with that person. I think a lot of times for people, they want that short-term gratification
Yeah.
and you know, and this comes whether it be goals or people. Um, but I think a lot of times you have that end of things, or, I've met people that will end things before somebody ends it with them, so that way it's a self defense mechanism from
Yeah.
their past trauma. Um, I've met plenty of people like that, unfortunately, but you know, the the whole belief that they don't deserve happiness, I
Mm-hmm.
think, is a big one. I think, um, which to me is really sad, and think even probably in my late teens and early 20s, I was kind of in that boat myself. But, um, there's a number of reasons. I think it's just, if you really want to boil it down to one word, it's fear.
Fear. I
Yeah.
think for me, because I'm gonna speak from experience, it's social media.
Hmm.
Reason is because let's say you end up being with the girl that you want. You get on social media and then you start seeing more attractive people. And then your eyes start wandering a little bit. And then you start kind of disconnecting with your significant other to put your, I guess, mind towards something else. And for me, I mean, I ain't gonna lie, I was the same way. Like, I was in a relationship and I still followed like a lot of attractive women on social media.
Right.
Again, I was out of a relationship for like 7 years, so I didn't know it was bad.
Right.
But I was noticing that my eyes were wandering a lot more on other women outside of the one that I'm with.
Mm-hmm.
And the moment that I started like taking all those women, so I stopped following all those women, started friending a bunch of the women.
Mm-hmm.
I could say it was a lot easier for me, just because now my eyes were more set on that one specific person that I chose.
Yeah.
I think commitment also comes from temptations.
Yeah.
Again, I mean, when you're in a relationship, a lot of which is I don't understand why, but when someone is in a relationship, they're always getting hit on even more.
Yep. Yeah. I've experienced that, even though I think in my mind, especially with the current one that I'm in,
Mm-hmm.
I just shut that stuff down so fast where I don't really even feel it, to be honest. But yeah, it's definitely there in terms of, a lot getting in the way of what your ultimate mission is, I guess, with that person. If
Yeah,
maybe not having a mission is another one.
yeah. I guess jumping in a relationship. I think before jumping into a relationship, people should really evaluate that person and think to themselves, where do I see myself with them? If all you could think about is short term things, then you should probably waste your time.
Yeah. In terms of, yeah. I mean, and if you really think about that, this conversation that we're having, if somebody is, really kind of knee deep into that short term gratification, hookup culture, all that kind of stuff, this is probably a type of talk that they're not really ready to hear. I don't know. That's just my belief. But I don't know, man. Like, commitment with a lot of things, I think life comes day by day
Mm-hmm.
if you really recognize those things. If there are things that you repeat day after day, you're committed to those things.
Yeah.
Big ones like your job.
Okay.
So for me, like, obviously I've got my career where I spent years studying just to get into this field, and, you know, now that I'm in it, I've been in it for years. I work, your typical 9 to 5, 40-hour a week job. Time wise, that's a lot of commitment if you really think about it compared to some of the other activities
Yeah.
that you do. A lot of people are very, very committed to their job. So, for those of you that think that you're not committed to anything, you're probably committed to your job if you've got one. And the reason why is because you want or probably need the money. So there's a big why in there for you. Um, in terms of jobs, though, or maybe you're an entrepreneur and wanting to start your own business, that's really something you got to ask yourself too. Is you know why? And when it comes to you bounced around some jobs a little bit here in the
Oh.
last, you know, last several, I'd say several months, right? That's around. But right now, while you're working in the particular job that you're in, you're committed to that job.
Hmm.
So my two-part question for you is, one, why did you move jobs? Why did you decide you didn't want to commit to the old job anymore and start committing to the new job?
I guess for me, it's more, there's more of an opportunity to grow at the newer job than it was at the last one. That's really just it. There's more opportunities and things that I want to be doing outside of work that could be helping me at that job than the other one could ever.
Right.
But then in relationships, that'd be a pretty bad thing to do.
Yeah.
No,
So you think it's
no, it would.
you think it's for you boils down to opportunity though.
It's opportunity,
An opportunity for what?
growth.
What does that mean?
It means I'm not going to be in the same place I am 5 years from now.
Okay. Why are you committed to growing?
Why am I committed to growing?
Yeah.
Just again, I don't want to be in the same place I want to be. I mean, I am now.
Okay.
I always think that I should be pursuing more in life than just living it.
It's fair. It's fair. So it's pretty much ultimately to achieve a life that you feel is more fulfilling
Yeah.
for you. Okay. Yeah. No. It's one of those things where you know the reason why I almost asked you like drilled down questions
Mm-hmm.
is because I think a lot of times when people talk about their whys and whatnot, you got to really dig deep on those things,
Oh yeah.
and it can't be just a superficial thing where it's like, okay, well, I want to, I'm going to commit to this job. Why? So I can make money. Why do you want more money? Oh, so I can take care of my kid.
Solid.
Yeah. And you can dig deeper than that. Like,
Yeah.
well, why do you want to take care of your kid? It seems like an simple, pretty self-explanatory thing, but there are people in this world that do not care about their kids
No.
whatsoever.
No.
So, I mean, it's really digging deep and asking those layered questions to really find that out, because I think a lot of people think they know the whys behind what they do, but once you really dig into those things deeper, it really gives you a chance to reflect on it and really examine it from a different perspective.
Yeah, I guess that makes a lot of sense too. I mean, it also kind of gives you your drive too.
Yeah.
Because once you start knowing your why, you know the days you want to be, quitting on the job or quitting on that person. You dig into your whys, that keeps you still there.
Yeah.
I for sure had those a lot.
For sure. And speaking of like quitting and whatnot, we live in this um, culture in a lot of ways. I think the cool kids call it hustle culture,
Mm-hmm.
where quitting is viewed as bad and a shameful thing to do.
Yeah.
But I wonder, in your opinion, do you feel like there's certain situations where leaving a commitment is necessary? And if so, what type of situations would you think
Mm,
apply?
It depends. If it's a job or a relationship.
Well, let's go into both.
Job for me would be, the culture. It would be easier for me to quit a job that has a horrible culture because let's say everybody's just bringing everybody down. You're gonna adapt to that culture, and you're gonna start becoming that person that's bringing everybody down.
Mhm.
One, that's gonna be stopping me from growing, and two, that's gonna be putting me in a negative mindset every day. A relationship, it's tough because if I'm just in a relationship with somebody,
Mhm.
let's say I'm not married yet or not married with that person, if that person is not helping me grow, and I know that she doesn't have to force me to grow or anything, but like she's there. And again, also, the basic stuff, the trustworthy and loyalty and stuff like that. But I think it comes down to more of how does she make me feel mentally when I'm around her. Again, it's different because if you're married to that person, then you start feeling really bad. I don't believe in divorce, so you're gonna have to like really work that out.
Yeah.
But if you're in a relationship, just a regular relationship, you talk it out. If it doesn't work, you move on.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the relationship, especially before marriage, is the time to do that because hopefully by the time you're getting married, you've got a pretty good feel for how that person operates and that person is somebody that will hold to those basic principles the rest of their life. You know, you were bringing up a story about how, when it comes to work and what have you, like a toxic culture and whatnot. I've actually got a great story about this of a personal experience. So I was born here, grew up here in Colorado, decided to flock away from the nest and went to the pastures of Nebraska, of all places,
Gross.
to do my schooling, got my degree, and then decided to fly even further into the pastures of Louisville, Kentucky to start my career. Because at that time I was like, I'm willing to start anywhere just to get, some experience down. And my ultimate goal after probably about a year in Nebraska was to move back to Colorado. I was like, oh man, I'm still glad I did it because it made me discover that I love being back home with family. I think there's a certain appreciation you get for that versus if you never left in the first place.
Yeah.
Or, some people leave and that's what they want to do and that's what they should do. I'm a big proponent of that. I think everybody should flock away from the nest at some point in their lives just to really see what's out there in the world. But when I was in Kentucky, those 2 years were probably up there with some of the most miserable 2 years of my life. And the reason for that had nothing to do with the people I was friends with out there. I think it was probably my one saving grace. But I was in a job where, you know, being young, green, naive, and everything, didn't pay attention to the high turnover rate that was there. By the way, good job seeking advice for you guys. If you interview with a place and you discover that they have a high turnover rate, you might want to inquire why. And if they can't give you a straight answer, look somewhere else.
Also in relationships,
Exactly.
ask them why the
Yeah.
last relationship split.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
it's positive, maybe they're a keeper. If it's negative, then you don't want to be socializing with them.
Yeah, if you're deciding to commit to something or someone, you want to get all the information that you can to make the best decision and best judgment for yourself on that. But, anyways, so I worked there and I was already burned out after maybe a year there. And, it's funny because the job that I currently work at, it's the same type of work, but I've been there for, over 4 years and I still don't
Yeah.
feel burned out there. A lot of it, I mean, my boss, a lot of it has to do with the wedding or not the wedding,
I was
sorry.
like, what?
A lot of it has to do with the people.
Yeah.
My boss, and I have another, and I invited two other coworkers to my wedding. You know, they're people that I view as wonderful people. My boss that I currently have is easily the best boss I've ever had. But at this place, this other place, I had a boss that, you know, he was that type of one that would always breathe down your neck.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure a lot of you guys could probably relate to having an experience like this at some point.
Yep.
People that are positional leaders, not real leaders, breathing down your neck. And then we'd have these weekly meetings, and it would stress me out. Like, they were every Thursday at 2 p.m. And I remember this years later because that was the time that I dreaded every week at work, because all I could think about was this guy calling me in and telling me about what I fucked up on that week. Because in my head, I'm just like, all right, what? And don't get me wrong, like, I think it's good to be coached hard
Yeah.
on certain things sometimes. This is not that type of conversation. I think you have to have balance to these things because you have to call balls and strikes. If somebody's doing something well, then let them know. And to this guy's defense, maybe I was in a mindset at that point where I wasn't taking coaching very well. I think I could very well see that. Because maybe he was telling me those things, and I was just only paying attention to every bad thing he would tell me about. But the one thing that he did for sure was we had this new guy that started, and I was supposed to help bring him along and what have you. But my my manager brings me over, and this was probably about a month before I left. And he just starts griping to me about this guy,
Mm-hmm.
about how he's not listening and how he's not doing anything. And it came off to me as very unprofessional because I feel like that's something you should discuss with somebody up, not down in the organization. So a lot of these things happen, and it was very common for people to be there for about a year and a half or 2 years and leave. A lot of the locals would go to another company that paid better and was lower stress whenever they got the opportunity. So I kind of considered this company to be a farm system for that company in a way, but, or at least that office. But I grew to be that person. Like, these new people came in, and I started developing friendships with these people, and I pretty much told, by the time I was about 3 months away from leaving, I was like at an all-time low from a misery standpoint.
Yeah.
And I'd go out with these people, and I just start drinking, which, for those of you that know me, know that I do not drink very much. This is probably the time of my life where I drink the most, though. I wouldn't get like sloshed or anything like that, but I would get tipsy, and I would just be like, I think there was a conversation one night where they were all in a circle, and I was like, I'm just gonna let you guys know that by the time you guys are here for about 2 years in, you all are gonna be miserable here. So I ended up becoming the toxicity of that culture, and I realized, like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I'm really miserable out here for a lot of personal life reasons.
Yeah.
I mean, that's when I had an ex cheat on me, was during that time period. I had no family, no range of support besides a few friends whatsoever, and I
Mm-hmm.
was like trying to look for months to get a job in Colorado lined up before I got back here. And I was like, dude, you've spent 6 years, 6+ years just trying to get your ducks lined up in a row. The ducks aren't going to line up in a row. You got to go. So I put in my 2 weeks notice, skipped town the morning after my last day. I was ready to go. And I had no job lined up and whatnot. But the whole point of the story is that even though I had a lot of difficulty securing employment here because of a plethora of other reasons, that year that I spent pretty much nearly broke, I was still going through my misery then, but I was still happier in relative comparison
Yeah.
to a job where I was making, you know, good money, but I had nobody of support
See,
around there.
that's something I haven't really been able to witness because I always, for me, once the job starts getting really toxic, I'm out.
Yeah.
I I don't just be like, maybe here in a few months it's gonna change. I'm just out because I'd rather choose my mental health over anything.
Yeah.
So I've never really been in a work area where it's been so toxic for me for like a month.
Yeah.
Because usually I'm just like, no, I'm just gonna look for something else.
Right.
Relationships wise, though, it's a good and a bad thing, but I tend to again just try to work it out
Hmm.
because I do see the end goal in every relationship that I'm in. So I try to just like work it out instead of noticing it right away. And that it's something I could have probably saved myself. When you see like toxic things and a lot of the things, I think for me, I'm more committed to that person that I kind of ignore all the bad things outside,
Hmm.
which ends up biting me in the ass at the end of the day. I think for me, it's once I notice that toxic part of somebody, I should just call it out at the beginning. If it doesn't change, then I walk away
Right.
rather than just again seeing long term when I can't even fix something in the short term.
Yeah. I think when it comes to a lot of these types of topics that we talk about, commitment, we've tied in temptations that we talked about in a previous episode. We talked about, a lot of these topics and that tie into this
Yeah.
in previous episodes. If you're somebody that feels like something's off, but you're having a hard time identifying what it is, I am somebody who's a big proponent of therapy and trying to dig deep and figure out those things. Because sometimes when you're so heavily involved with something, you can't really see it from the outside perspective. And sometimes it helps to have that. I, I'm not saying that like it's going to be a quick fix because you got
Yeah.
to talk it through a lot of things just to almost get that person up to speed on where you're at to make a professional diagnosis. The other thing
Mm-hmm.
too is that you have to have a good therapist and one that you can trust. As much as I believe in therapy, I do think that a lot of therapists are more in it for the money than your best interest. So make sure you have somebody that's good
Let's
there.
say someone can't afford therapy.
Do you got somebody that you trust? Somebody that's real with you? If not, go out and start making friends until you find someone.
For me, it's someone that thinks differently
Mm,
that I trust as well.
right.
Because let's say I have a friend and we're both into the same stupid things.
Hmm.
He's gonna tell me the exact same thing I'll be thinking.
Right.
If it's with somebody, that's being like, I don't know, just toxic. He's probably already used to that kind of things. So he's gonna be like, oh, that's just normal. I want somebody to think a little bit differently outside of what I think and give me a different perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. I think,
Or books.
yeah. I mean, there's a lot of resources out there. I think a lot of times people aren't committed to finding the answers to,
Again, I think short term.
yeah. Yeah. But I don't know, man. Like, commitment is one of those things that, we can sit here and pretend like we're all like good aces 10 out of
No.
10 with it, but I think there's a lot of things that, you know, we probably messed up on in that department ourselves. I mean, I've I've quit on a number of things in my life in terms of not it being a good thing, in terms of like not a good thing to quit.
No, I mean even with me, I've also mentally, and this is also the thing, I've also mentally quit in a lot of relationships. Never physically, but always mentally gone.
Right.
there's been a lot of the times where I compete. I wasn't committed to the end goal, and it showed.
Yeah.
Like my mindset was at the end goal, but my work wasn't,
Yeah.
and it showed at the end.
Yeah. I mean, even, you know, in the experience with, you know, the thing that we're going to be talking about with the finale, and yeah, another shameless plug for that. But I would say that there was a lot of things that I decided to never fully commit to, and had my
Yeah,
results in certain areas would have been a lot better. I think for sure. But that also mixes in with the reason why um I quit committing to that said thing was altogether pretty much was justified. But while I was in it, you know, I never really fully committed myself to um going after certain results that I said that I wanted to go after.
I think like when somebody's getting best way I could probably explain for commitment is it's kind of like going to the pool. You can't just dip your toes in there
Mm-hmm.
and kind of say that you're already committed.
Yeah.
To me, that just seems like you're testing it.
Mm-hmm.
Jumping in the pool is commitment,
Yeah.
not dipping your toes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, that's how I feel like with a lot of relationships. I just fucking dive right in it
Mm-hmm.
and kind of ignore everything.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people are scared to do that, but like dive in. Like when it came to like when Antonia and I first got together, we had a lot of the conversations that people were afraid of having on the outset. How many kids you want? What kind of future do you envision? What are your values? What are your morals? What are this and that? Do these things line up for us? People tend to want to dip their toes in the form of, having fun little talks and, getting laid and having a honeymoon phase without really going into these deeper questions. When if you just do that and say that it doesn't line up for you, you just saved yourself a lot of time, a lot of potential heartache.
That's
And
something I learned from you. I do
yeah,
ask a lot more questions now.
yeah. I mean, it's kind of funny because even I would say even in the thing that we were a part of,
Yeah.
that was an area where I failed big time.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I had done that, I think I would have, one way or the other, arrived at a path much quicker without wasting not only my time but other people's time
I feel
as
the
well.
same way.
Yeah.
I feel like if I knew what I learned from that thing, I probably would have been a different. I would say I'd be in a better place because
Mm-hmm.
then my mindset would have been still going with me at a young age.
Yeah.
But yeah, that asking a lot of the questions thing before I fully commit with somebody, I got that from you. Honestly, I think I've heard you say it once to me that you were kind of questioning, not questioning, but telling Antonio a bunch of questions,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I should start doing that. Fortunately, it hasn't worked out for me yet, but hopes are still high.
I mean, just play the law of numbers. If nothing else, something works out eventually.
Hinge, you better sponsor me.
Hinge, you were designed to be deleted. Help this man.
Help this man.
Help this man like you helped me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that's gonna include the today's episode.
Yeah. Yeah. Let us know, um, what you guys think, unless you guys are too afraid to commit to that. Ending it just like we started.
Bye.
Bye.